In the vast, unforgiving arena of the Pacific War, one name stood for sheer, uncompromising aggression: William Frederick Halsey Jr., known simply as Bull. A man of volcanic temper and undeniable charisma, he was the embodiment of American fighting spirit when the nation needed it most. He was a pioneer of carrier aviation, a hero of the Solomon Islands, and ultimately, the commander of the most powerful striking arm the world had ever seen, the United States Third Fleet. This is the story of how a battleship veteran, dismissed by some as too reckless, guided the US Navy through its darkest days, and step by step, took command of the immense force destined to decide the war. A journey that culminated in the largest naval battle in history, Leyte Gulf. When the Japanese struck Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, Vice Admiral Halsey, already a confirmed believer in air power, was fortunately at sea with his flagship, the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise. He returned to a scene of devastation, and his famous pledge, that before we're through with them, the Japanese language will be spoken only in hell, became a rallying cry for the battered Pacific Fleet. In those first desperate months, as American bases crumbled across Asia, Halsey was one of the few who could strike back. Commanding Task Force 16, he led a series of morale-boosting, hit-and-run raids against Japanese outposts in the Marshall and Gilbert Islands. His philosophy was brutal and simple: hit hard, hit fast, hit often. In April 1942, his carrier provided cover for the audacious Doolittle raid on Tokyo, delivering a vital psychological blow to the enemy and lifting the spirits of a nation hungry for victory. Halsey's aggressive style, once a matter of debate among admirals, was now exactly what the crisis demanded. But the stress of non-stop action took its toll. Just before the crucial Battle of Midway, Halsey was medically sidelined, suffering from severe psoriasis and exhaustion. He missed the defining victory that turned the tide of the war. When he returned to duty in October 1942, the war had entered its most critical, grinding phase, the struggle for Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands. With American forces on the brink of disaster, during this critical juncture, naval support was tenuous due to Vice Admiral Robert L. Gormley's reticence, malaise, and lackluster performance. Pacific Fleet Commander Chester Nimitz had concluded that Gormley had become dispirited and exhausted. Nimitz made his decision to change the South Pacific Area commander while Halsey was en route. As Halsey's aircraft came to rest in Naumea, a whaleboat came alongside carrying Gormley's flag lieutenant. Meeting him before he could board the flagship, the lieutenant handed over a sealed envelope containing a message from Nimitz: "You will take command of the South Pacific Area and South Pacific forces." This was a command change born of desperation. Halsey brought instant, aggressive energy. His arrival was said to boost the morale of every sailor and marine in the theater. He committed his scarce resources, fighting a series of brutal, close-quarters naval engagements: the Battle of the Santa Cruz Islands, the Naval Battle of Guadalcanal, that bled the Japanese dry of pilots and ships. His can-do attitude was infectious. In recognition of his command through this critical period, Halsey was promoted to 4-star admiral in late 1942. He had stabilized the front, secured Guadalcanal, and charted the bloody path up the Solomon chain. The next phase of the war, however, would require a much larger stage. By 1943, as Allied industry churned out an ever-increasing number of warships, the war effort shifted from the defensive battles of the South Pacific to the grand, relentless offensive across the Central Pacific. Halsey's command transitioned with it, and here lies the key to how he became the commander of the Third Fleet. The US Navy developed a revolutionary command structure designed to confuse the enemy and maintain an unprecedented operational tempo. The massive, integrated force of fast carriers, battleships, and cruisers, the ultimate weapon of the Pacific, was commanded by 2 different admirals on a rotation basis. When Admiral Raymond Spruance was in charge, the fleet was designated the Fifth Fleet, and its striking arm was Task Force 58. When Admiral William Halsey Jr. took command, the very same ships and men were renamed the Third Fleet, and the striking arm became Task Force 38. In May 1944, Halsey was officially promoted to commanding officer of the newly formed Third Fleet. This allowed one admiral and his staff to be ashore, planning the next operation, while the other was at sea executing the current one. It was a strategy of relentless pressure, ensuring the Japanese never faced an exhausted fleet. For the enemy, it was always the big blue fleet coming at them. But they could never be certain which methodical genius or aggressive brawler was at the helm. Task Force 38, Halsey's weapon, was a sight to behold. A collection of over 100 ships, spearheaded by a dozen or more aircraft carriers, capable of projecting overwhelming air power hundreds of miles inland. It was a self-sustaining juggernaut, operating far out to sea, striking at will, and then establishing forward bases like Leyte Atoll to refit and resupply. From September 1944 onward, Halsey led the Third Fleet in a devastating series of operations, pounding the Palaus, softening the defenses of the Philippines, and executing vast, deep strikes against Japanese positions off Formosa, China, and Vietnam. The Third Fleet was no longer just protecting islands. It was dismantling the entire Japanese defense perimeter. This campaign culminated in the invasion of the Philippines at Leyte. By October 1944, the massive Allied landing force required powerful naval protection. Halsey and the Third Fleet were positioned north and east of Leyte, ready to face the inevitable Japanese counterattack. The stage was set for the largest naval confrontation in history. The Battle of Leyte Gulf was a colossal, four-pronged Japanese gambit. Admiral Takeo Kurita's powerful center force was tasked with smashing the landing beaches, while a nearly aircraft-less carrier group, led by Admiral Jisaburo Ozawa, sailed from the north, acting as a deliberate decoy. This decoy was aimed squarely at Bull Halsey. On the morning of October 24th, Halsey spotted Ozawa's carrier fleet. For a man obsessed with destroying the Emperor's carriers, this was the moment he had trained for his entire life. He took the bait. Halsey turned the entire might of the Third Fleet north, leaving the crucial San Bernardino Strait, the doorway for Kurita's center force, unguarded. He was focused on fulfilling his aggressive doctrine of total destruction. The enemy carriers were his priority. He destroyed all four of Ozawa's carriers in the battle off Cape Engano. It was a massive victory, but in rushing north, Halsey nearly created a catastrophic disaster. Kurita's center force slipped through the unguarded strait and descended upon a tiny group of U.S. escort carriers, the lightly armed Taffy 3, leading to a desperate, heroic defensive fight. While the Leyte landings were ultimately successful, Halsey faced immediate and lasting criticism for his single-minded pursuit of the decoy, a decision naval historian Samuel Eliot Morison famously termed Halsey's blunder. Yet, despite the controversy, the outcome was undeniable. The Third Fleet, under William Halsey, had secured the vital Leyte operation and, in the process, annihilated the last operational aircraft carrier forces of the Imperial Japanese Navy. Halsey, the aggressive pioneer of air power and the commander of the mighty Third Fleet, had achieved his mission, crippling the enemy's fleet and guaranteeing victory in the Pacific.